Hello and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today is Saturday, January 24th, 2026, and we are unpacking a phenomenon that I have to say, if you had told me about this 5 or 10 years ago, I would have thought you were reading the map upside down.
Oh, absolutely. For decades. For as long as we've been tracking this stuff, the flow of medical tourism has been a one-way street.
Always pointing west.
Always.
Yeah.
That was the SOP for the entire world. If you had a really complex medical issue, a rare cancer, a difficult surgery, and you had the money.
Right, if you could afford it.
You bought a ticket to the Mayo Clinic or maybe a specialist in Germany. That was just the gold standard.
Exactly. The whole story was that Western medicine is where the miracles happen. But we're looking at a stack of sources today. Social media data, hospital reports, articles that suggest the magnetic poles of global healthcare have, well, they flipped.
Flipped is the right word. We're tracking this huge surge in what people are calling a reverse migration.
We're seeing foreigners, and not just from developing nations, we're talking Americans, Europeans, flocking to Chinese hospitals.
Yeah, and it's a really fascinating pivot.
Yeah.
What's so critical to understand here is that these aren't people looking for, traditional Chinese medicine.
No, this isn't about acupuncture.
Not at all. They are going for high-tech, high-speed, heavy-lifting modern medicine, MRIs, complex surgeries, cancer treatments, the works.
So on the surface, this sounds like a massive success story for China, doesn't it? The ultimate soft power win. Come see our hospitals, they're better, faster, cheaper.
You'd think so.
But when we actually dug into these sources, and we have everything from viral TikToks to very dense financial critiques, it turns out this is not just a happy travel story. There is a really fierce, almost angry debate brewing just underneath all this.
It cuts right to the core of a huge question. What is a nation's responsibility in a globalized world? On one side, you have this internationalist view.
The humanitarian angle.
Exactly. Medicine is a global public good. Technology should be shared. Saving a life is saving a life. It doesn't matter what passport they have.
Sure, that makes sense.
But on the other side, there's a very vocal, very intense protectionist argument popping up in China. And they're asking a really hard question.
Which is?
Why are we letting foreigners exploit a system that was built on the blood, sweat, and taxes of 1.4 billion Chinese citizens?
Wow. Okay. So our mission today is to unpack this. We need to get into the why are people suddenly running from Western hospitals? Then we'll look at the numbers from inside a major Chinese hospital. And finally, we have to tackle this really heated ethical debate about shareholders versus tourists.
And to really get the scale of this shift, you have to start with what the sources call the aha moment for these foreigners. Because for a lot of them, it's not about politics. It's just raw numbers.
They describe it as opening a new world. I was looking at this one story, the South African influencer in Yunnan. This seems to be one of the viral posts that really kicked this whole thing off.
It's a perfect case study. He needed an MRI. Now, for you listening, getting an MRI is usually one of two things, right? It's either a logistical nightmare where you wait for months,
or it's a financial catastrophe.
or both. So this guy, he just walks into a hospital in Yunnan, no appointment, no insurance pre-authorization, none of that nonsense.
Just walks in off the street.
Gets the scan. The bill comes to 486 RMB.
486 RMB. I did the conversion on that. That is roughly 67 US dollars.
Less than 70 bucks. Now, contrast that with the US. If you're paying cash for an MRI, you're looking at, what, anywhere from $800 to over $3,000.
It's a staggering difference, but for me, the key wasn't just the money, it was the access. He didn't wait 6 weeks, he just got it done.
And that speed is what really stands out in the second case we have, the American blogger.
The stomach pain case. This one is, it's just a damning indictment of the American system.
It really is.
The notes say this guy had been suffering from severe stomach pain for 2 years back in the States. 2 years? How is that even possible?
It's what some people call the referral loop of doom. You see your main doctor, they refer you to a specialist who's booked for 3 months. You finally see them, they order a test, your insurance denies it.
So you have to appeal and wait and then maybe see a different specialist.
It just drags on and on. This guy got fed up, bought a plane ticket, and landed in China.
And the timeline there, from checkup to cure.
The whole process. Checkup, diagnosis, treatment, completely cured. 13 days.
13 days versus 2 years. It's almost like he's bug fixing his health by changing servers. He just logged out of the US server and logged into the China server and all the lag disappeared.
That's a great analogy. And this is the key insight for you listening. These people are essentially healthcare refugees. They are fleeing failing systems back home. The sources are pretty clear on this idea of Western healthcare failure, and they break it down into two different models.
Okay, let's break those down. Because we tend to think of the West as one thing, but the ways they're failing are different.
Very different. First, you have the European model, the UK, Canada, places like that. The critique is boiled down to a single phrase. Free is the most expensive.
Meaning you pay with your time, not your money.
Precisely. The coverage is universal, but the capacity is just shattered. The system is overwhelmed. The sources talk about wait times of 6 months, a year, sometimes 2 years for what they call an elective surgery.
An elective can still be something really painful and debilitating, right? It just means you're not going to die tomorrow.
Exactly. And the source material mentions these extreme cases where patients literally die while they're still on the waiting list. It's a grim reality.
So that's the time cost. Then you have the American model,
which the sources call fast but bankrupting. It's available right away if you have the cash, but the prices, they've just completely disconnected from reality.
The stories here are just brutal. I was reading one from 2014, so this is not a new problem, about a swimming coach. Knocks out 3 teeth in an accident, takes a 15-minute ambulance ride.
And the bill for that ride?
$1,800 US. That's over 10,000 RMB just for the ride to the hospital.
And it hasn't gotten any better. There's a 2023 case, a patient in LA named Wang Wei. He went for a chemo consultation. 15 minutes with a doctor.
The bill was $5,600.
$5,600
Yeah.
for 15 minutes.
That's hundreds of dollars a minute.
So when that person looks at China, where an MRI is $70 and registering to see a doctor might be $5 or $10, the difference isn't just cheaper, it's a different reality. It feels like China has solved a problem the rest of the world is drowning in.
But this is where I want to push back a bit. Because it's easy to say China is efficient, but why? Why is it so cheap? Is the quality really the same? Because the skeptic in me is saying, you get what you pay for.
That's the billion-dollar question. And according to the sources, including Western doctors who visited, the quality in these top-tier Chinese hospitals is world-class. A big part of that is just volume. Chinese doctors see more patients in a month than some Western doctors see in a year. They're incredibly experienced.
Okay, so the skill is there, but what about the price?
That comes down to 3 big things. State guarantees, massive industrial capacity, and huge government investment.
Industrial capacity? You mean like they make their own stuff?
Think about it. China produces its own medical equipment, its own generic drugs. It builds its own hospitals with its own steel. They aren't paying massive import markups on everything. Plus, the government invests nearly $1 trillion a year into the sector. It's a subsidized machine.
So the low price the patient pays is possible because the state has already paid for most of it on the back end.
Exactly. Which brings us to the view from inside the hospital. We have a source here from a doctor at the Zhejiang University 4th Hospital, and he sees this influx of foreigners every day.
So is he worried? Is he panicking about the system being overwhelmed?
Surprisingly, no. He sounds incredibly optimistic. He frames this whole trend not as a burden, but as a responsibility. He even quotes that official concept of a community with a shared future for mankind.
That's a very high-level diplomatic phrase.
But for him, it's practical. He sees these foreign patients as living proof that Chinese healthcare has, reached a global Tier 1 status. He's proud of it. He says that last year, his hospital alone handled about 26,500 foreign patient visits.
26,000 for one hospital? That sounds like a huge number. That's a small town.
It does sound huge, but the doctor's really careful to put that number in perspective. He points out that 26,500 represents only 1% of their total outpatient volume.
Wait, hold on. If 26,000 is 1%, that means they're seeing, what, over 2.5 million people a year?
Yes. The sheer scale of these hospitals is just hard to comprehend. So for inpatient care people actually taking up beds, he describes the impact as negligible. His whole argument is basically, relax everyone, it's a drop in the bucket.
He even tells a story about a British patient who was just floored that his treatment took 1 day versus months back in the UK, and he quotes the patient saying, "True healthcare is timely, accessible healthcare."
For the doctor, that's a badge of honor. It's a soft power victory. It shows the world the system works.
It's a persuasive argument. If it's only 1%, what's the big deal? Why is anyone angry? Because this is where we have to pivot to the other side of this. There is a very loud, very angry counter-narrative blowing up online in China, and they are not buying the 1% defense.
No, not at all. And to get their anger, you have to go back to what we just said about why it's so cheap. The critics ask a very simple question. Why is that MRI only 486 RMB?
Right. It's not because the machine was cheap.
Exactly. It's because the Chinese taxpayer subsidized the hospital building, the electricity, the doctor's entire education, the road leading to the hospital, everything.
The low price is an artificial price created by those tax subsidies.
Correct. The critics' key phrase, and it's a powerful one, is that this system is the result of 1.4 billion people's blood and sweat. Their argument is that the low prices are a dividend that's meant for the people who built the system, for the citizens.
This is that shareholder theory I saw in the notes. I found this analogy really, really striking. Can you break that down?
It's a potent metaphor. The critic argues that Chinese citizens are the original shareholders of the country. 4 generations have worked, paid taxes, suffered through hard times to build all this infrastructure. Affordable healthcare is their return on investment.
It's their dividend payment.
Exactly. So when a tourist flies in, pays that subsidized price, and flies out.
The critic sees them as a non-shareholder trying to claim dividends they never earned.
They're free riding on the heavy lifting of the Chinese people. Even if they pay the listed cash price, they aren't paying for the decades of investment that made that price possible in the first place.
That's a fascinating way to frame it. It's not about the $70 for the MRI. It's about the $1 trillion invested to make the MRI available for $70.
Precisely.
But let's go back to the doctor's point. It's only 1%. Does it really matter?
The critic's answer to that is the crowding out theory. And this is a very practical point. You can build more MRI machines, but you cannot instantly clone the best doctors and nurses. Their time is finite.
Right. There are only so many hours in a day. You can't 3D print a surgeon with 20 years of experience.
Exactly. If a top specialist spends 30 minutes with a foreign medical tourist, that is 30 minutes a local patient, a shareholder, isn't getting. The source points out that major hospitals in cities like Shanghai and Beijing are already packed. Locals sometimes have to get there at 5 a.m. just to get a number to see a doctor.
So adding even a small percentage of foreign demand just makes a crowded situation worse for the locals.
It creates that feeling of, I helped build this house, why is a guest getting the best room while I'm sleeping on the couch?
Yeah, I get that.
But I think the most interesting part of the critics' argument is what they call the economic trap. It answers the question I know you're probably thinking.
Which is, why not just charge the foreigners more?
Exactly.
I mean, that seems like the obvious solution. If they're used to paying $3,000 for an MRI in the US, charge them $1,500 in China. It's still a bargain for them, and the hospital makes a huge profit to help the system. What's wrong with that?
It sounds logical, but the source argues it creates a massive systemic risk. Let's say you start charging foreigners 5 or 10 times the local rate. Suddenly, treating a foreigner is way more profitable for the hospital than treating a local.
Oh, I see where this is going. The profit motive kicks in.
Hard. Hospitals, even public ones, need profit to expand and survive. If the international wing becomes a gold mine, the hospital will start tilting resources toward it. Nicer rooms, better equipment for that wing first. But more importantly, the doctors and nurses.
They'll follow the money. They'll want the higher bonuses that come from treating the high-paying patients.
Of course. So they'll move from the public wards to the international VIP wards. Or they'll leave the public system entirely for private hospitals that only serve this group.
Okay.
Creates an internal brain drain.
And that leads to the nightmare scenario they described, a 2-tiered system.
Right. The rich and the foreigners get VIP care with the best doctors, and the poor, the original shareholders, are left in understaffed, underfunded public hospitals. The critic argues this would fundamentally destroy the fairness and the entire social contract of the Chinese public health system.
It's a classic slippery slope argument. You open the door a tiny crack to show off your soft power, and suddenly the whole foundation of the house starts to crumble.
And that's not even getting into the fraud aspect. If there's a huge price gap, you create a black market.
Like scalpers for doctor's appointments?
Scalpers, insurance fraud, you name it. The critic basically sees this as opening Pandora's box. Once big money becomes the primary filter for access, fairness just evaporates.
So what's the solution then? Does the critic just want to ban all foreigners from all hospitals? I mean, that seems extreme. Sorry you're having a heart attack, but you're not a shareholder.
No, not quite. They propose what they call a middle ground, but it involves some very strict gatekeeping. They lay out 3 categories of foreigners who should be allowed to use the system.
Okay, let's hear the list. Who gets in?
First, foreigners who are actually working in China and paying taxes.
That makes sense. They're contributors. They're paying into the subsidy pool. They're functional shareholders.
Exactly. Second, tourists with minor acute issues. You get a fever, you twist your ankle, basic, unpredictable humanitarian care.
Okay. fair enough.
And third, life-threatening, unpredictable emergencies. Heart attacks, strokes, major accidents. The critic agrees you don't let someone die in the street over their passport.
So who gets rejected? Who is the villain here?
The parachuters. People who specifically fly to China to get treatment for chronic conditions that they had before they traveled. The argument is, if you've had a disease for 2 years, your situation is not an emergency. Fly home.
The critic makes the point that a flight to the US is only about a day. You're not going to die on the plane from a condition you've managed for years.
Right. The stance is, this is a planned extraction of value from our system. And the critic is very firm that this isn't about racism or discrimination. It's about corporate governance, basically. Apple doesn't give dividends to people who just browse in the Apple Store. They give them to people who own the stock.
It is a very protectionist view, but you can see why it resonates, especially if you've ever been in a crowded hospital waiting room yourself.
It brings us right back to that core tension we started with. You have the doctor, who sees a global humanitarian mission, medicine as national prestige. He's looking outward. And then you have the critic, who sees a resource drain and unfairness. He's looking inward, asking, who is protecting us?
And for you, the listener, this matters because this isn't just about China. This is a debate about globalization versus protectionism in the most vital sector there is, health. It forces us to ask, what is the point of a national healthcare system? Is it a charity for the world? Or is it a fortress for its own citizens?
And this debate is only going to get louder. Information spreads instantly now. One TikTok, one post on Xiaohongshu about a cheap MRI, and suddenly thousands of people are booking flights. The barrier to entry has never been lower.
It really makes you wonder, in a world where information is global and travel is cheap, can a national healthcare system even survive without building some kind of walls? Or will every country eventually be forced to prioritize its own shareholders first and just leave everyone else to fend for themselves?
That is the question of the decade. Because as costs in the West keep spiraling, the pressure on affordable systems like China's is only going to grow. Something's got to give.
A lot to think about. We'd love to hear your take on this deep dive. Are you with the doctor or the critic? Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.